it can be, or I'm witnessing, I'm noticing that, sorry, that I can totally see from her, from another person's perspective, why she's saying this. And at the same time, even though I can see the truth in what she's saying from her perspective, it's there's a reaction in my field that something is off, that it doesn't apply to me 100%. And then the question is, well, is that just because maybe I don't want to see something, I'm denying something, something like that. I'm addicted to something, to a certain way of thinking, to a certain way of believing. So what is an addiction? An addiction is when it's an unconscious belief, for one, and the other one is that I'm not conscious that I feel I'm lacking something, and I'm trying to compensate for that lack. That's basically where addiction comes from. So, on the one hand, it's true, it's totally true what she's saying. And on the other hand, I realize, coming back here into my own dream, looking at my world through my being, it can be a whole other story. And this is the remarkable property of reality, is that every single one of us is in their own dream. And what is happening is that what is going on is that there is this collective dream that we all, to one degree or another, in one way or another, are dialed into and are perceiving and are participating in, have an influence on. And then there is that part of the dream that is being influenced from, oh God, there is that part of the dream, exactly, of the collective dream, that is pulling us out of our own dream. And that's where the dream becomes monotony, where it becomes, not monotony necessarily, but homogeneous, exactly, homogeneous. And it can be it is also monotonous. It is also like this culture that is grabbing all indigenous, all intricate, smaller groups, clans, cultures, tribes, those traditions, those religions, those worldviews, those understanding of reality, those perspectives, those dreams, those histories, and just gobbling it all up, like in Spirited Away, that the big black guy, I forget his name, the big blob eating up everything, and it's like never full. It's never full. And that is this homogenizing culture. It is a culture. It is like a color that is gray, because all colors are getting mixed up into one soup, and then when it's just all gray. And so it makes everything the same, cookie cutter, the same. What does that? What brings about this kind of pattern? That's mechanical. That's mechanical, because life brings about fractality, and that is a pattern. Even though it always repeats at the same time, there is, at the same time as it always repeats, and I have to put that into parentheses, it's also every pixel of it, going down into the infinite small or to the infinite big, every single slice of it, every fraction of it, every pixel of it, every iota of it, every atom and subatomic particle of it contains the whole. That's nature, that's life, that's how life grows. It grows in fractality. That's what that means, fractality. The third part about it at the same time is that every single particle of it is unique. Even though every single particle of it entails the whole, it is also unique. Why? Because it's about angles. As soon as we have form, that form is in time, some kind of time space. And then we have, if there's one form, there's also going to be two forms. And yeah, it has to be. How's that? If there's one form, there has to be two forms. If there's one, there has to be another. If there's a form, that form, there already has to be time-space. If there's time-space, there has to be a sun in that time. There has to be light, because light is existence. Light is time-space. Darkness is not. Darkness is the illusion. Darkness comes about through light. Getting densified, getting denser, going down in density, going down in frequency, densifying. And so we have something that is so dense that blocks the light, and then there's shadow, and that's darkness. Or we travel so far away from the light that we can't see it anymore. And then we start to forget it, in time-space, and we start to forget it. And then also there is darkness. And when we forget the light, we forget our light. We forget our connection, that we are one with the light. And then fear has its way with us. Then fear has access, has a potential. It can come, it can happen. And that is the naive state. That is being open and to the possibility of fear. And someone who is scared once, that makes an imprint, and then that imprint will repeat. It will repeat. That's how we go denser and denser and denser. Light densifies itself, puts limitations on itself, goes into fractality, into the denser dimensions, physical, more and more physical dimensions. And then at some point this happens with fear and, yes, and then the falling and the densifying, yes. So what was I saying about the truth, about the dream, everyone in their dream.
Mm-hmm.
And the collective dream. Yes. Yes, in the collective dream, exactly. So our realities, yes, and then this culture that is taking over and overriding with its, it's like it's sucking up the individual cultures into it and homogenizing everything. Cookie cutter culture in this repeating pattern, this um, frequency that culture is coming from is this is the part of the collective dream that makes us fall asleep to ourselves. This is the part of the collective dream that lures us in um, with its fear, really, because it is like something we are afraid of. So it is the part of the collective dream that is the illusion, the illusory part. We buy into that. We're matched to that wherever we in within ourselves are based in fear and have also taken over from the collective, passed on through the ancestry lines, through the culture that we grew up in, beliefs from that collective, where the collective is based in fear, and it comes out through the different cultures within the collective that are still not completely homogenized, and it will never be completely homogenized. Um, Even though it has come well on its way, and we have lost, you can also say, lost many traditions, languages, and also species. That goes hand in hand as we are losing the stories, um, the yes, the cultures, the different cultures. It's also a certain, when that tradition is alive, when that culture is alive, it also emits a certain frequency, a certain spice to the mix, a certain sound. And then there's always, in the animal, in the spirit world, there's an equivalent to that. And then when the culture goes, the species also goes. As an example, the buffalo, for example, even though they didn't die out all the way, but they're all the, there are many species that have died out completely. It's called got extinct. Yes, okay. Okay, so this is a sound. This is a vibrational frequency of the collective dream, of the collective consciousness, of the, let's just call it, morphogenetic field. I'm just going to use that term right now. I don't know if it's, technically, scientifically perfect or even applicable, but I think it, to me, it makes sense, because how I understand the morphogenetic field by Sheldrake, even though I don't remember exactly what he wrote. But it is a field. Okay, every species shares this field, and I think it's brain waves. I think it has to do the frequency, and brain waves. That's a frequency, and it's also a certain frequential pattern is in there, and that's unique. And every species, that frequential pattern is like it's a they share, like a radio, basically. So those are those are frequencies. So if you go to a certain area and you have that receiver, radio receiver, and you dial in, then you can, you dial into those frequencies, you get that radio station. And it's like every species has that collective radio frequency that they share. And then there's also, there's many layers of this, because there's also the layer where we share collective with all the animals. So for example, our emotional, we may not share ideas with animals. We may not share on their level of perspective, of perception, of understanding. How is it for an animal? Do they have stories? Do they, how do they communicate? What kind of thoughts do they have? That's not the field we share with animals. But I mean, we can if we tune in, if we're like, if we have the potential to. Still, if we'll see it like through their eyes, I don't know, because it will always be us imagining ourselves and them. So it will always be still filtered through a human body. But what we do share with animals is the emotional body. All those emotional frequencies we share with the animals. That's really huge. And yeah, that's a field. That's a field that we share. And then there's also the field of plants. Yes, that's also a field that we share, even though they don't have the same kind of emotional body even. But in insects, yes. And so now we come into the realm of chi, and I don't want to get distracted from what I wanted to say in the beginning, but now we come into the realm of chi, and chi is a Chinese word for, and there's good chi and there's bad chi for energy, and you want to get the feng shui is laid out so that you want to get the good chi into your house, make it high vibe, and thereby be very successful, and in manifestation, they understood that the good energy and the bad energy had to do with, and this is chi, this is what we feel when we go to a place and a place feels good. These are, like a home that feels syrupy, that has a nice scent to it, a natural nice scent to it, and it's warm, and the colors are warm, and it just, the hum, the tone of it, and the way we feel, we can't explain, we just feel really comfortable there. A place with old trees, where it's, and the air is sweet and fresh and rich. We hear the sound of the bees. We hear the sound of the humming and birds, and it's just like a place where it's like it kisses our heart, and we can breathe. We breathe deep, and we just tons of stress falls from us. That's a place of high chi, of good chi. So what does that good chi, apart from that of the obvious, that it's good chi is always connected with beauty, and good chi is always connected with love, and good chi is always connected with nature, wilderness. But it doesn't have to be total wilderness. It can also be a garden. It can also be a nature worked with, changed and worked around, like a garden. But there can also be gardens, like everything is perfect, and very, very, very low chi. So it depends on some other things too. It depends on the frequency there, exactly. And now we come to the part of what actually this good chi is. Apart from healthy nature, that it's clean, you know, that already is the bottom line, is clean air and clean water, and that the sound is natural. However, you could also have a place of really good and high chi in the middle of, you know, a city or something where it's really, really, really low chi, but still you have this little island that you can create. And that has to do with definitely how natural a place is and how little because toxic materials and also frequencies, which are sound vibrations, so like electromagnetic frequencies, these are all they pull the frequency down, and they are for the biological organisms, they pull them down, they make them feel bad. So there's beauty, natural material, nature, and fractality. And then it has to do with how many spirits are living there. It has very much to do with the nature spirits, because this is the light, and that's the actual chi, because that's where they will live. They will live in places of beauty. They will live in places of nature. They will be attracted to love vibrations. You know, if there's always in one place, let's say there's a really sweet family living somewhere, and that place doesn't even have to be so, you know, super with lots of nature. They can just have some plants in their home. And around it can even be noise, and around it can even be not too much, because there has to be a corridor, there has to be a way there, and anyways they couldn't stay high vibe in a place where it's too harsh. But I'm saying it doesn't have to be perfect, because we can create this good chi. We attract with our high vibrations, with our harmonies, with the songs of our heart, with our love. We attract also these nature spirits, but they're nature spirits, so we have to have a natural environment, as you know, as much as possible. So some plants or crystals, you know, rocks, and what else? in our house, and then the house with beauty, you know, and also they love good scents. So if we burn incense, for example, they love that. They're attracted to that. It's similar, like if you have on your balcony, you have certain flowers, and they're blooming. What's going to happen? The bees are going to come. The bumblebees are going to come. Depending on, you know, where you live and the potential of that is there, what can you get, you know, how can you feed that potential, or what can that potential, like, okay, there may be not many bees, but those bees that exist in a diameter, they're going to come to you if you have good food for them, you know. And that's like on the physical level that we can see. We build a bird's nest, or we give them water, or not even that. I mean, it doesn't even have to be like that. They're attracted to if you have good chi on your balcony, or even in your home, and then it goes, you know, because our auras are they give off a vibration, and they'll like to then sit on your roof, because it's like a good vibrations place, you know. And so you will attract birds, you know, if they are in the vicinity anyways, you know, then they will they'll be attracted to you. They'll like to build nests on your house, for example. And this is all the good chi. And really it means it's the light, because nature spirits, they are living beings in a different dimension, just like when our spirit, it's not the same place, but when our soul leaves our bodies, leaves our body, they're also still here, but they're in a different dimension, so that we can't see each other, but we can feel each other, especially when we think about each other. So we can still share space, and we do share space, and it's like that too. It's like, are we sharing space with happy souls, or are we sharing space with stuck souls, or ghosts and unhappy souls? And so that's also bad chi and good chi. There's the the happy-go-lucky little nature spirits, and there's also big nature spirits. I don't know too much about them, but I'm just going, yeah, some basics. They, just like another person that has a good that is vibrating harmoniously. They feel good when you have them over. It's like they lift you up. The sun rises when they come into the room. And it's the same thing with the nature spirits that are then attracted, and that's the good chi. And old trees, the older a tree is, every tree is going to have, just like we have our guiding angels. Everybody has a guiding angel. Everybody has their spirit guide, guiding angel. Different names for the same thing. Totems. I don't know, totem animals or so. We have these beings. At least one. I mean, that's for sure. We have, but probably more. But again, I don't know, and it varies from person to person. It can, like, oh my God, it's just such diversity here. It's incredible. But we have these friends, helpers to our side on a higher dimension. And I always ask myself, and maybe one day I'll become clearer on that. Well, how is it for the fallen ones? Probably don't have a connection anymore. Then, since they don't have connection to their soul, to their spirit guides. But I didn't want to go there. But the bad chi, of course, is also, and that those are the exactly like with the human beings, the humans that feel good, the humans that feel bad. They're nature spirits that feel good and feel bad. Or nature spirits. There's also because nature spirits, those are the spirits for, as I said, an old tree will have, like, the nature spirit that is taking care of that tree. It might even have lots of them, taking care of that tree. The tree itself has a soul, is part of a collective soul. We call it deva. So first it's the collective soul of that particular family of tree, and then that particular, species of tree. And then there's a deva of all trees, and then there's a nature, and then there's like a deva. Deva is this word for the oversoul of the natural world. And for example, every mountain has that oversoul, and it overlooks a certain region, so, and how intact that region still is, how alive that soul still is. That's how much chi there is in that region. That has to do with how everything is in harmony with nature. It doesn't mean that people can't live there, but how in harmony are they living there with nature? And how is their relationship? I mean, they don't have to necessarily have a conscious relationship with the nature spirit world, but if they are living in harmony with nature, then they have also harmonious and great relationship with the nature spirits. And if they thrive, it's like, wow, it's like the chi, you can cut through it. It's so syrupy. It's a place of it's a beautiful place. It's like, yeah. And the nature spirits are, so they each are part of an, okay, so the plants all have their soul themselves. And then there are the nature spirits, like, fairies, gnomes. I know it really sounds, we call it fairy tales, and in one word that also means it's make believe. It's It's not real. It's not real. But the thing is, it is. It just is. That's what got left over in folklore. You know, what we have now still as a part of the old folklore that we don't believe in anymore, that we think it's like it's all made up. But in truth, it's not. At the same time, as we have, of course, come so far away from living in harmony with nature and have destroyed a lot of ecosystems and made it really hard for them to not a pleasant place for them to live. And also what happens is here's what happens when nature gets destroyed, okay? And eating a plant is not destroying nature. Building a house is not destroying nature per se. You know, we can do all these things and be in complete harmony with nature. So it's not like, well, we're human beings and we have to destroy nature to thrive. It's the opposite. We only thrive when we live and work in harmony with nature. And that doesn't mean at all going backwards and living as cavemen. It's the opposite. It means really, because we're living as cavemen now with the technology that we've been stuck with for so long, you know, with the lid on the technologies that it couldn't naturally develop and blossom because there was this, and now we're coming back to that, this collective dream, and there's a part of the collective dream that is the illusion, and that is taking, you know, luring us into a dream that is taking us away from ourselves, that is taking us also away from the good chi, and that is that because it's lowering the frequency. So the higher vibrational realms with the good chi, they're not perceivable anymore. That doesn't mean they're not there, but they're not perceivable anymore. And on this version of reality, in this dimension, they are not there anymore. So when the chi is thick, it also is like the support for our body vibrationally to be in touch with the soul, because it's like by osmosis, you know, all those nature spirits are in touch with your soul. They feed your soul and you feed them, because it's light feeding light. Oh yes, and of course the dark chi, the bad chi, yes, of course. I don't think you would even call that chi. I mean, because it's really not light anymore. It's a dense energy. It's a feeling bad energy. It's pain bodies, you know. So it would be like the fallen ones in those realms. And then we wouldn't call it the fairy realms, because they're lower, so they're not in the fairy realms and what we call the spirit realms either. Even though when those realms fall, they also go to. We can still not see them because they're in it's like not only up and down in dimension, it's also by frequency. There's, you know, there's like different sequences. There's like overlapping different parallel universes, also different dimensions that we, even though maybe we may be in the same bandwidth in height, in height, but we may not be in the same time and space, same time and location. It's like, oh, I don't know how to describe that. Yeah, let's just say that, same time and location. Okay. And when we get to that matching frequency, then we also can share again time-space. Or at least there's like a tunnel connecting, a portal connecting us. It's like a space opens up and connects these two parallel realms again, where we have interface. And that's always when there's it's like code that clicks, and the only way it has to click is in height of frequency and then in how harmonious it is. And even though in the denser frequencies there's less harmony, because it's always, harmony is always like the perfect embodiment of the heart, where the soul frequency can flow through, where the light shines through, and the denser it gets, the less light shines through, the more the heart is compromised and closed and cannot embed everything anymore. And so the stuck, the unharmonious can't make it through, the unharmonious denser frequencies can't make it through, so they remain in a disconnected, apparent disconnected state. Which means we can't see them either, but we would feel bad chi, but we wouldn't call it necessarily, I mean, I wouldn't call it bad chi. I don't know if the Chinese actually call it that, or if they have a different name for it. You know, the Feng Shui people, where that word chi comes from. And because I think it's used in general as just simply positive. It's what you want. You want to have this light force, life force. You want to have this chi. And I think I would call bad chi, I would call it more like it's, I think it's what they used to call, here in Germany, keep away the bad ghosts or something, and in also in all the ancient traditions, they always had what would they call them? The demons and not monsters, no, but demons, I think, and those gargoyles, or those. I don't know if there's like one word for all of them. I can't think of it right now, but they had a lot of, they were also known to exist, and of course those you didn't want to attract. You wanted to attract the happy ones and the high vibrational ones. Yeah. Yes, and then of course there's always the potential of healing. Yes, healing a place. So if you go to a place, be it in nature or be it in a house, where something happened that was painful, and it pulled down the frequency of the land, it pulled down the frequency within a house, and then attracted the let's say the bad chi, or this can all obviously that can be healed, just like all life can be healed, all energy, all that is living can be healed. And there are people who know about this, and even in countries such as Iceland, and even in Germany, a country where this is officially not at all, it's like completely not at all spiritual on an official level, but still I know that in a country like in our country somewhere, the public, the city or the town engaged this man who, because there was a part of the Autobahn, there was a part of the freeway where there were always accidents, and then they engaged this man who went and be peaced. He appeased the land. So he went there and he looked at, okay, what's going on here, and it had something to do with the nature spirits there, that they were angry or something like that, and if there is, for example, a mountain, that's a pretty big spirit, that's a bigger spirit, and so there's quite a few of nature spirits. So if there's a place where there is strong nature spirit energy and they're, for example, angry with something because, yeah, their world is being negatively impacted, for example, then there can be a communication and there can be a way to appease that. I mean, healing can begin when you really understand what is the cause of this. And okay, so in Iceland, there's even someone for the nature spirits. There is a politician in their parliament who's there. They have like I think a ministry of. I mean, isn't that awesome? Like the Ministry of Magic, they have a Ministry of nature spirits, because they haven't forgotten about it. And in Ireland, this is so strong. Also, still, so many people are like, yeah, of course, they exist, and because a lot of them also are still seen by many people. Okay, but what I really wanted to get to is the collective dream, and we all have our own unique dream that is like projected out of our soul, and then there is this part of us that has been imprinted by our culture, by this part of the collective dream that is the match to that, and how that part of our perspective that we have, of our story about life, can come in. How are we a receiver to that radio station? That's the egoic mind. That's that potential that we have. And this is more than a potential. It's a sense. It's a real sense that we have, that we come in. Well, hold on. The sense of separation from God, and that is a potential that gets exploited. It's like a receiver. It's like a 0-point receiver, and then what it receives the whole time, everywhere, is separation. You are this person. You have that name. And you are this, and you are that, and we are this, and we are that, and that's this, and that's that. And everybody around you feels separate from each other, so it's the whole time, that's the imprint you're getting. And then it also had something to do with, of course, at what, in what year were you, at what time were you born. It has something to do with the overall vibration of the collective, and of that also morphogenetic field, how much fear was in that field. Then it has to do with the age of your soul. It has to do with, because your soul, when it reincarnates, it can't go higher. How should I say? It has to pick up from where it left off. Because it just has those muscles. It just worked. It just built those muscles on that level of density. So it can't go, like almost like jump not just class, but jump a year, and you can't jump ahead to where it would go onto a parkour that would just smash, that it couldn't handle it. It wouldn't go well, So depending on the imprint of the soul, how deep it has already gone into density, and with that, Because what happens with the lower densities is that duality gets bigger. Sense of separation gets bigger. Potential for fear gets bigger. The other thing is that the soul on its cycle of okay, now I'm gonna do some incarnations on this planet. You know, if it's coming from a different planet, which then I think they call them star seeds, and if it's a soul that has for the first time been birthed through this planet, through the heart of this planet, then that's called an earth seed. Even also, it can have thousands of years, but just on this planet. So for the cycle of incarnations on a planet, all the incarnations before that the soul had, I don't know if it doesn't include also maybe the planets before, depending on if there was trauma already from the planet before that wanted to be in this incarnation cycle on this other planet, wanted to be worked through, wanted to be integrated, then it will be carried on. Otherwise, if there's no trauma and if there's a blank, then there's a blank slate, and then there's just, okay, this is what I want to do, a whole other experience, and I want to do it there because also I can see that this will, it's not just, in other words, it's not just in my own highest, or the highest good of the soul, which is always also a soul collective, depending on how evolved the soul is, it is aware of that soul collective. But it's also in the highest good of all. Here, with what I've already been through in this incarnation cycle, I want to learn this and this and this, and then I can also be of service, and I want to partake in this play, in this, big play out, because I can see, what we're working out. We're really working out something here, and that has to do with healing. That has to do with integration. That has to do with the ability to bring further light into density, also to save souls that have gotten lost in the dark. But this is a big thing. I mean, this is a big attractor, is to see, wow, I can grow my spiritual muscles big time in that scenario and help all those brothers and sisters that have fallen, those that haven't fallen beyond, and then they dissolve back into the one light, and that was it. In other words, they get recycled because they've fallen too deep, and they can't keep their bodies alive anymore. From that point, when they can't feed anymore, then their bodies dissolve, and then that fraction of that God spark in that life form, even in that density, it's like a soul that's completely asleep, just like wakes. It doesn't even wake back up. God remembers it. All that is remembers it, and it's like it never was. At the same time, that whole cycle where that soul got born and went through all those different incarnations and eventually fell all the way, and eventually didn't get any more negative energy to feed its negative. It really is a negative, because at some point it cannot incarnate anymore once it lost its body. It's like it's not a ghost. I explained that. Yeah, demonic entity. And then when it doesn't get fed anymore, it just, God remembers it, and that's it. And, oh yes, but the Akashic records of the universe that happened in, Yeah, it's all recorded. So that's going to, of course, it's nothing in vain. So that whole journey is now part of the immune system of that universe. Immune system is how can I keep this body at peak performance in total harmony at all time, and consciously awake at all time, so nothing bad can ever happen to me. That's like peak performance immune system. Okay. Collective. With this, yes, with our egoic mind, that's where it can latch on, that's where it latches on, is that uh, collective egoic mind. And as the individual egoic mind, also the collective egoic mind is unconscious. So it's all the unconscious beliefs. It's coming from fear. And it is telling a story through fear, and it is an illusion. At the same time as it also is a real, yes, it's illusory through the perception, but when perceived through this mind structure, it seems absolutely real. The experience is absolutely real through this fear. It is then a fearful reality. It is a darker, denser reality. And it is also a reality that is like a noise distortion signal between us and our soul that makes us not feel one with our soul. It's that distortion signal, because it is based on separation. So it is where all of what we are and who we are is getting put into little boxes and limited and so forth. This distortion signal, because it's not our soul, it's not coming from the egoic mind, is not coming from our soul. It is a built-in structure into this reality that we all are a part of. In this time-space vantage point on this planet. It can be seen through, and then thereby its power goes away, and then thereby we're also no longer the receiver to the collective egoic radio station sender. And those are all the stories that come through our culture that keep us small, that keep us in doubt, that keep us sad, that keep us feeling ashamed and guilty, and all of this. Now, it's one thing to feel guilty and ashamed and really allow yourself to feel that. And you can't even help but feeling it because it's so strong. And that's when you're allowing yourself to feel that, that's when your heart can touch upon these frequencies, and then they can be healed by the heart. When they're felt, they can then be healed and come back to the heart. And then what is left is you will either see that the shame and the guilt was a story that you took on, and that you dove deep enough into yourself to feel and see that that story is not true, and that then you no longer feel it. However, if you dive deep, 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 and the story remains true, that you will always feel guilty for this and always feel ashamed for this, because that's what you did, you know. It just is never going to feel good. Then the only way to heal this and to come out of this negative vibration is when first of all you again you feel it, and then you have to go beyond yourself. You have to completely transcend yourself that did that. And that means to go beyond the egoic mind into your soul. And on that soul level, there's a different perspective of that. And you may still, because you're human, you may still, you know, feel, every time you think about that, you will feel the shame and the guilt and the sadness. But what happens is that when you reunite, which is you never separate, so I prefer to say when you remember, because that's really what it is. It's a remembering. So you remember your soul remembers itself as you. That's what the same thing. Oh, I need some water. So I need some water. Yes, so what is the egoic mind in the anatomy? Is there a representation of the egoic mind in our anatomy? Is there something that is perhaps not original, that is perhaps not natural, grown out of nature itself, in our bodies that represents the egoic mind? Which when I say the egoic mind, I mean the unconscious part of our minds that are not, that is in reverse, harmonious, dissonant vibration to our soul frequency. So it is not just in, you know, you don't have to consciously know it's your soul, but you can feel your soul and be coming from your soul. Someone who is, for example, who naturally listens to their hunches and inspiration. Someone who naturally follows their heart. Someone who naturally feels connection to nature and works and understands that that's the most intelligent and wise and beautiful and healthy thing to do, is to never work against nature, always work as much as you can in harmony with nature, and that your body is a part of nature. You don't have to know anything about the soul to know this, and then you are still working in harmony with the soul. And thereby yes, creating beauty, creating harmony, creating fractality, creating space for the soul to be, which also means, higher in frequency, good chi, lots of lots of these natural bodies coming in, the nature spirits. Okay, so is there a part of our anatomy, because they always speak about these, that we were tampered with, whatever, the egoic mind exists for a very, very long time. And of course, always in stages. How tight do you, how tight do you turn the dial? How much up do you turn the dial? You know what I mean? How low do we go? How deep do we go into fear? How deep do we go to sleep as a soul into the separation, the sense of separation mind, the fear-based mind, the mind that is like in a deep dream, in a very small box, where everything is very much under pressure and with lots of drama, which creates, of course, also a lot of anxiety, and the fearful vibrations brings us very, very low intensity. Where does that come from? Who is holding the vibration of the egoic mind? Well, on the one hand, we're holding it. And then, of course, there's the collective mind, and everyone in the collective is holding it in their minds. But then there's also something else. There is something else, and that is what I keep seeing. That there is a manipulation of that field that is pulling us away from ourselves. That is pushing us down in frequency, holding us actually in a lower frequency. And that is, first of all, from beings, of course, all the fallen ones that we're connected with, and that are connected into the DNA lines, into the ancestral DNA lines, and the soul DNA lines that we carry. So that's number one. Number two, this will have a representation on our level. Because every single, there's always the representations of everything from on the inside and the outside, and the low and the high, and the microcosm and the macrocosm, the small and the large. So what I'm getting is that there is like the epitome of the egoic mind. There are those beings that are completely working out of that sense of separation, fear-based, survival-based, and well, they are fallen, but they don't all need to be fallen into the lower dimension where we don't see them. They can already be fallen to a degree where they are operating out of their separate self, just completely on survival, to the point that also they're willing, their heart structure and their ability to have the natural compassion that we have as souls, that we have as human beings. But there are those human beings they still have a body, but there are also other beings, obviously. Um, yeah, there are all kinds of beings also on this planet. Um, Humanoid and yeah, don't want to get into that, but that only makes sense, and I know, and yeah, I didn't want to. I take that. For me, that's it. I know this, and this is a given that there are not just the human race on this planet. There are also um, humanoid beings. We may not, just like there are also the nature spirits that most of us can't see, and they have all kinds of bodies and looks, and there are Sasquatch, and they're also not human beings, but they are humanoid. They're not animals. That's what I mean. So, what was I saying? Right. And there are the representation on this planet, in this field, in this auric field, the representation of those beings that have influence, either are on the same bandwidth or have influence into this bandwidth, not just from the demonic realms, but also from the very physical realms, that have fallen to the point that they will, on survival, coming from fear, and so they're working against life, just like our egoic shadow parts work against us and pull our life force out, hold our life force also in the negative. Yes, in the negative. Pull it out, pull it down, pull our vibration down. They do the same thing. Since they are not connected to their souls anymore, they have no light to work, to go on. They have no energy to go on. And okay, so now I'm talking about the fallen ones, but also, let's say, on our level, there are those that we call like vampire people, or people who let's just say people who steal. That's a very physical form of stealing energy from others, very physical way, yes, of stealing energy from others. And then those people, they're already fallen to the point that they don't believe, and coming from such a place of non-compassion, and I need this, I have to survive, and I don't care about the others, and making it myself. Yeah. So that's like one. But then I was gonna say about the collective and the waves, the morphogenetic field and the waves, and then that which our egoic mind, will be a match to or not. We're a receiver. We're a receiver for it or not. And it's like that part of the collective mind that is keeping us. This is what I wanted to say. Within a dream that we all either buy into to a certain degree, or don't buy into to a certain degree, and to that degree that we don't buy into that, the homogenizing, same making, part of that collective dream that is coming from the egoic mind, that is an illusion, and that is doesn't want us to remember who we are. It wants our energies to stay low, because that's the frequency range of those people that, or those beings that, they're the stealing ones, they're the falling ones. They don't anymore work for the collective. They don't anymore care about doing good. They're the ones that are actually, they're also not the ascending ones, they're the falling ones. And so they need to manipulate in order to get energy, which is energy that has to be a match to them. So it's low energy. It's low energy. Because if they don't get energy, they can't, first of all, that's all they want. Because they can't get it from themselves. They're not connected anymore to their hearts. And the only way they know how to get it, and the only way they get it, because that's how far they've come, is from taking it from others. And we can find places maybe in our lives still where we do that unconsciously in the very, very small. But as soon as we know about it, we usually feel bad about it and we want to change it. But it's, of course, with the way our system is still, that the collective system, especially in this homogenizing, culture, this modern culture that is always getting way farther and farther away from nature, it is sometimes difficult, to work in harmony with nature and not with your lifestyle also be a part of the destruction of it. At the same time, what matters is that with your vibration, you are healing that separation. You are healing that divide between you and your soul. And that's how you come back into harmony also with nature. And as you support that, you support all soul, all harmony, all light body. And you, anyways, then, your life, the way it is serving the real collective, it's serving the collective dream coming from all souls, not coming from the illusion, fear-based, identified as a limited self, as a separate self, disconnected from God. In a closed heart, in that taking way. There are maybe still those little unconscious areas in us where we're still for the taking, because we were still for the getting, because we forgot who we are. And then, when we remember who we are, and this is also what happens with the, going beyond the separation egoic mind, going beyond that identification, beyond that story, into your soul self, which is like, boom, the story just way, 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 way open, even if we have no clue about our lives before. But when we know we are a soul, we've had lives before. We've had incarnations before. And the potential there is then so much bigger. And then what happens when we see what we learned and why this might have happened, this where we feel ashamed for, this that we feel so guilty for, what kind of growth may have come out of that. And we go very, very deep also into the moment when it happened, how we felt, and we will realize that in that moment we were not ourselves. For some reason, something else took us over. That was not who we were, who we are. That's not who we are, because we feel so bad about it. We would have never have wanted to do that, and we would have done anything to make that, undone, to undo that. We would have done anything to undo that. That's how we feel, and that's who we are. So we realize, for some reason in that moment, we were taken over by this override program, by this egoic mind program, that also is a match to the collective, the program that is sending this distortion signal, is sending the dividing, the fear-based signal. And we are also a match to the lower realms. We were also a match to the lower realms potentially, where there are entity attachments, as they are called, entity attachments, dark entities that come and attach to our where our light body has the holes, and we give off the negative, the reverse, because it's the reverse spin, and then we lose that energy feeding, feeding a lower entity, and then that entity attachment has, it pulls us down and has an influence on us. Yeah. And so that's it's not magnetism, but it has an actual charge. Exactly. It's like it drives us. We can't help ourselves in those moments when we're like taken over by these entities. Yes. And even though it comes through us, and we did it, and we could have not done it, somehow we were not strong enough in that moment, and we did something that we regret. Yeah. So what happens exactly when we remember ourselves is that we also remember how that was and what it took to get to that place, because we were already feeling really bad. There were already traumatic events that had happened that have brought us to the place, from childhood. It has brought us to the place to where then that happened, this override, and when we were mean, and we did mean things, and we did things that we regretted. So there's compassion there for ourselves. There's that ability that comes with this remembering, with the soul coming in. And when we live in a place where there's lots of chi, when we cultivate the good chi, this all supports our soul to come through, and for us to remember our soul. It makes that by osmosis stronger. It doesn't suppress it. And also we go higher in frequency, and that means that all the lower frequencies within us will be able to, release, come to the surface bit by bit, bit by bit. That also means, and this is an interesting phenomenon, that sometimes you can be really in a good mood and everything's really wonderful. Like around you there's no drama or anything. And you're almost surprised, you don't understand why you feel bad. Something is off, something is wrong, something feels bad. Or you could be totally depressed in paradise, because it's when a relaxation and an opening happens, or when the vibrations are very high, they're going to pull up the lower vibrations. They're going to bring them to the surface. And that doesn't mean that we're always going to feel bad in a really high vibe place. But that high vibe place will bring forth our stuff for healing, because that's how we heal. We will heal faster in a place like that, and we will be confronted with our darkness. Not in the outside, but on the inside we will feel it, and on the outside there will be like the perfect container. But if you are not ready on the inside, and you go on the drama on the inside, you will there in paradise not have a good time. It will not be paradise for you. And you will not be able to stay long, because you won't be a match to it. Unless there are also, of course, those areas in paradise where you are a match, and then that's not paradise anymore. Okay, the anatomy of it. Yes. So the part within us that is a part of this, that is living from in that way, against the natural flow, again, in reverse, against also the body, against the whole, against the life form that it lives in. And that's also the distortion signal. That's what I'm seeing, is that there is a life form, many, many different life forms on Earth, all in this same separation-based mind, that in their way, in their cultural way, they express the taking of energy, and so they must manipulate. They must manipulate because it is taking, it is not giving. At the same time, of course, we unconsciously let go of that negative energy. But that's, of course, that negative energy is it's like it's inviting those parasitical organisms. But it attracts a lot of them, and they want more and more and more, because it's never enough. How can it ever be enough? Because what they really want, and this is the whole thing. What they really want is to come home. They really want to come home. And the whole time they're working, going further away from home. They're working against it. Why? Because it is shorter for them, and it is the only capacity that they're not even aware of, that they don't even sense a capacity to come back home, because they're falling. So it's shorter for them to fall. The quicker they fall, the more energy they need from the outside to survive, because that's just the illusion, right? But that's from their perspective. So the more they fall, the hungrier they get for the lower energies. So that's going to be like really strong charge of that override, that low fear-based energy, negative emotions, strong charge. And if that doesn't get fed anymore, because consciousness reawakens, and with that there is consciousness of these negative energies, emotions within us, and with that they don't feed, they don't go out, they come back in, they come full circle, they come back through the heart with the being conscious of it, with the giving space and simply feeling of it. Then we starve out those, entity attachments. We are no longer a receiver to the collective illusory, fear-based mind, artificial distortion signal sender, egoic collective mind. And there are many representations on that in the physical realm. Let's not go into that. So it's the shorter way. So when they don't get fed anymore, boom, they have no more way to hold themselves together, and they dissolve, and God remembers that part of itself, and it's done. It's done. It's like recycled. That entity is gone. It doesn't exist anymore. Whereas when we die as the light bodies that we are, as the ascending ones that we are, all the life forms in the light, they are connected through the heart, through their hearts, through the light. When we die, we just shift forms. Our being still exists. That being completely merged back with the one light, with the one, all that is one. And that being literally doesn't exist anymore. whereas we shed the body, and or not, we shed the body in the reincarnation cycles, and then we also live as a soul in between on those higher level, higher densities. We have a body there too, but it feels different. It's more like in a dream. When we dream, we also have a body. There's even some dreams where the body is very real, but it's always, even in a dream where the body's going to be very real, and we have even physical sensations in a dream, it is still not going to be the same intensity and haptivity, the tangibility like in a physical body. And that's how it is as a soul when it doesn't have a physical body. But physical bodies can also ascend and live for thousands of years, depending on what species, what story, what incarnation cycle you're in as a soul, how old your soul is, where your soul was born, what kind of soul it is. All of these, that's within the myriad of possibilities of life forms. Yes, but we don't stop existing. They don't. It's like that light that was still holding, which was asleep, that was still holding together that entity. That light reemerges. Everything else just is energy that just goes. It doesn't have that even anymore, because as all the stolen energy that it was amassing around itself, in that moment that it doesn't get fed, it is that someone remembered it, that where it came from, wherever it came from, those are soul fragments. That's light that doesn't belong to it. It's light in that sense that it didn't come out of itself. It's light that was taken, and it's light that's very, very dense. Where this dense energy is connected to, when it's remembered, when we remember our soul and we heal that stuck energy within us, that it can come back through the heart, then it sucks that back in and diminishes the entity that was attached to that. It diminishes it, and to the point it can be diminished that all there is, it doesn't exist anymore, and the quantum of light just gets remembered by the one light, and then that entity, that form, which was still a kind of a light form, even though super, super, super dense, totally asleep, like a robot too, in a way, but it wasn't a robot, but a slave, completely a slave to fear, completely, unconscious. That doesn't exist anymore. Yeah, I think I'm done.